Okay, so I'm not going to be able to make this amazing swing. Yes, I can. We can do this. Amazing. Okay, so let's talk about how to make numbers pop up, which is a nice juice effect for your game, especially if it's a hack and slash. So right now we have the ability to attack, click and move, and we have some run animations and stuff. Okay, so if I boom, 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 I can attack this wizard and then he dies. But we don't see his health and we don't see any numbers pop up above his head. So we're going to make that happen. And one of the easiest ways that I've done this, there are a lot of ways to do this, but the easiest ways that I've done this is I'm just going to create a canvas and I'm going to make it world space. We'll have the event camera be the main camera, though I don't think we need one. And then for our canvas, it's way too big. So we're going to make it a lot smaller. Let's make it 20 by 20. Let's zero out its position so that we see it. It's right here, and it's even still too big. So I'm going to make it a lot smaller. Great, we got this canvas here. It's a world space canvas, meaning that we'll be able to see it in game view. And at this point, I will like to keep game view open. On this canvas, let's just add a text element. Okay, let's make it best fit, which is gigantic for some reason. Uh, let's go ahead and this is like kind of fake messing around, but let's say you do like 999 damage. Okay, I'm gonna make it tiny. Well, first of all, I'm gonna make it be as big as the as the canvas. So I'm gonna click the anchor and I'm gonna hold Alt and Shift to stretch it to be as big as the canvas itself. Okay, so we see that it is 0 to the left of the canvas, 0 on top of the canvas, so on and so forth. And 999 is not showing up. So let's give it a scale of like 0.1, 0.1. Then let's say overflow, overflow. Turn off best fit. I'm going to make the alignment center and center. I'm going to change the color to be white. I'll give it a black stroke. So outline, black, and we can increase the font size a lot to make it crisp and decrease this a lot to make it small. So 0.01, 0.01, let's try 0.001, no, 0.005, how about that? And again, this is like maybe not the best way to do this. I don't know, it's the way that I know that usually works. So here we go, 999, right? Order and layer, let's make sure that it pops up above everything else. So layer number 10, we want to see our numbers at all times. Yep, world space is good. This text is boring because it's Arial, but I don't feel like, let me see if I have another font. Font. We'll do Canny Rocket Square. Sure. Please work. That looks sci-fi-y, but it's not readable. I don't like that. So let's do Kenny Pixel. Come on. Yeah, that looks fine. Cool. And we can even bump this up a little bit to like 0.007. Great. Why not also drop a shadow on it? make that shadow like 3 by -3. So that is popping it off from the back of the screen. We can put the alpha a little bit lower. Let's make this alpha a little bit higher so that it definitely is clearly separated from the background. Okay, so now we have this canvas, right? And let's go ahead and name it something like number pop-up. I'm going to drag it down into my assets folder to make it a prefab. Okay, so now it's a prefab. Really love the landscaping going on in my neighborhood. Let me close my window. These people have, myself included, very small lawns and industrial landscaping companies. It's America, all right? All right. So what I want this to do is float up for a little bit and then, then destroy itself. And we'll start out simple, just make it float up a little bit and then destroy itself. And then maybe we'll add some more effects like, I don't know, shrinking or getting bigger. So I'm going to add a script and I'm going to call it number float. Come on. And remember, we're working on this prefab. So any changes we make, we're going to have to choose overrides and apply them all. So we're not working on the prefab itself. We're working on an instance of it right now. So let's give us some options, and the options will be like float. That's funny. That's called floating speed. Float, rise speed, and then we'll call it like, well, we'll make this public so we can change it, and then public float death delay. Okay, and for death delay, all we have to do is say destroy game object, comma, death delay. That means that it's going to destroy this game object after delay seconds, death delay seconds. And then in update, we'll just say transform.translate, right? Moves the transform in the direction and distance. I don't use transform.translate that often. So let's see how this works. Transform.translate. We need a vector 3. That vector 3 is going to be new vector 3, 0, comma, rise speed, comma, 0. I'm guessing this is going to go really, really fast unless we set rise speed to be really, really slow. But let's test it anyway. I'm going to say death delay should be 1 to 2 seconds. I don't think it needs to be on screen for more than 2 seconds. And then rise speed, let's make it 0.5. Not terrible. Not as fast as I thought it was going to be. Let's make it like 0.1. Okay, again, that goes off the screen pretty quickly, so it's not as helpful as we might like. So I know we got really small numbers today. Let's go 0.01. I like that. I like that a lot. That's a good one. And the other way we can do this, especially if you're making this for other humans, is that like 0.01 is not a natural speed, right? But 1 is. So what we could do is we can make it 1 and then divide it by 100. Okay, so let's do 1. And then in our script, we'll just say divided by 100. Okay, so for human readability and human use, 1 is much more natural than 0.01, 100th. Okay, so that is good. And all we need on the enemy script is public game object, number popup. And what's going to happen is when you get hit by a weapon, health is going to subtract by 2, and you're also going to instantiate, let's say game object geo equals instantiate popup, number popup. We don't need to have a transform. Let's do transformed opposition. And then let's do quaternion dot identity. We might not want position. We might want position, plus an offset because it's above. We want it to go above. But let's just do position right now. And then what we're going to do is we're going to modify the game object right away. We're going to say geo.getComponent number float dot no, not get component, sorry. Geo.getComponent in children text, and it doesn't like this because we're not using UI up top, but we'll say text.text equals health. Oh, no, it doesn't equal health. It equals however much damage you're being dealt. Okay, so we set this up a different way. We're not actually taking damage right now. We're just setting it to be like minus equals 2 every time. So let's say, so right now the player isn't doing damage. The enemy is only losing health. So, I mean, listen, if it's going to be 2, no matter what, let's just do 2. And we'll change this, I promise. We'll modify this to be better. And so, yeah, it doesn't like this. So we need to go up top, and I duplicate this line with Control D, and I say unityengine.ui. Because if it's not using unityengine.ui, then it doesn't know how to find text. So geo.getComponent in children text.text equals 2. Yeah, we can also do RNG. We can do separate numbers, like you do 2 to 4 damage. We can definitely do that. I'll do that right after this. Let's just test to see if this actually spawns or not. So for the number pop-up, first thing we need to do is apply these overrides. Apply all. Let's delete it. And then in the wizard, all the wizards, and ideally your wizard would also be a prefab, we're going to drop this number pop-up right there. Okay. So now let's try to instantiate it. Let's move over. And it instantiates the number when it takes damage. Yeah, right? Like it's pretty simple, but it's a really nice touch. Oh yeah, that's the fun part. Okay. So let's switch up the code a little bit to make it so that the player does damage instead of just the enemy taking damage, which is like kind of weird to say out loud. And I'm going to do this a little quickly, but click to move. This is our main player script. So in here, we're going to have up top, I'll make it public float min damage, max damage, because we want to pick a random number between these two to deal damage to the opponent. Okay, so attack logic is if you're turning this on, weapon.setActive true. That's one way to do it. We're working with collisions right here, which could be imprecise, but let's keep working with this anyway. So it's going to set the weapon to be true. The weapon, on trigger enter for the enemy. If you are colliding with something tagged weapon, then what you're going to do is, this is going to get really a little bit spaghetti-y. But one way to do this would be, we know that the sword is a child of the player, and we know that the player I'd like to get to an auto attack. Oh boy, got a lot to go on here. Okay, so yeah, let's retool the attacking then, because it's going to get really out of hand if we just keep doing it like this. One way we could do this is, we know that the weapon is a child of the player, so we could say get component in parent, click to move. So I'll just write this out. It's a long, annoying line. We'll say float damage equals, or damage I take equals collision dot get component in parent, which is click to move dot and the click to move, let's actually make a function that is called random damage. And random damage is going to return a float. Float will say DMG equals random.range, min damage, max damage, and we'll return DMG. Okay, so damage I take, we don't even have to store it in a float. We could just do cut this and say that the text health minus equals, oh no, we do. Okay, I'm going back. The problem with not storing it in a float is we're calling a random function twice, which means it may return two different values. So let's only call it once, dot random damage. Random damage is right here. So health minus equals random damage I take. And this is going to equal damage I take dot toString. Go away. Okay. And then let's make it like have a color if it's a lot of damage. So we'll say if damage I take is I want to do this, but it's like a little hacky, so I don't feel super confident doing it, but I'll do it later. We could say like, hey, let's set a range from the maximum value. Let's say your max damage is 100, then if you do 80 damage or more, then it's going to be red, and that'll feel really good. Like, yeah, I'm doing a lot of damage. And if I'm doing anything else, it's white. And maybe if you hit like a really weak hit, then it's blue. But for now, let's not go into that, because I do think we have to retool this. So min damage is going to be 1. Max damage, let's say, is 3. And let's press play. And it does 1.003 1.34514. Nice. Amazing. This is what you get for random. So good. So good. But it is doing it, right? It's doing a random number. We actually have to format this string. I don't remember the best way to format. Yeah, string format is 0, 0. Better programmers know these codes more than I do. Nope, I'm used to doing it with time. That was not good. Um, let's see. Let me quickly look up Unity format float to to 1 decimal place. 0.0. I was so close. Damn it. Yeah, if you want to do whole numbers, I think it's just 0. The problem with that is you are using a float. Like at that point, you might just want to do it would be to me, I don't know honestly how the player would feel about it. The player might never know, but if you were to be taking away a float value and only show an integer, I think that might be weird because if you do 1.9 damage 3 times and you're only taking away 1 each time, that seems kind of weird. But you could do like math dot floor, meaning like returns the largest integer smaller or equal to f. Or you can just cast it as an int, but it might round down, I forget. But yeah, you could also just do toString 0 and it'll just show up the first amount. I think we had this problem last time where like on trigger enter is really not great for what we're trying to do here because of this. Okay. An auto attack and then a skill that has a cooldown. By auto attack, do you mean click and hold and it just attacks over and over? Click once and it attacks until the thing is dead? Or if you click off of it? Okay. Love this. Put me on the spot. Okay, that's fine because that'll also have some cooldown stuff in it. So let me think for a second. We don't want this nonsense where it is where we're depending on collisions. So let's go back to Unity and think about this for a second. Wizard idle, he's got this box collider around him. That's a trigger. The fact that it's a trigger is good. So let's make it like a little bit farther out from it, like so. And so now we have this range where if we're within this range, we can attack. This is for melee. This is not for a ranged attack right now. But what I'm going to do is, if I right click, it's just going to keep attacking until I click off of it or until the thing dies. So we made this trigger. I'm also going to tag it. I'm going to tag it enemy. And I'm going to make sure all of these wizards have the same box collider, which is a little bit larger than them. So I'm going to click them all. I copied the component, then I'm going to paste the values of those components. So now this one is a little bit larger than it. And I'm going to also make sure they're all tagged enemy. And so what we're going to do is our player should have a box collider. It's not a trigger. Can I put another box collider on it that is a trigger? Yes. Good. So then I put another box collider on it that's a trigger. I don't know if we need that or not. I'm going to test it with and without it. And on the player, I'm going to say void on trigger enter 2D. And we'll say if collision dot tag dot compare tag enemy. And we need to jump up real quick. Let's jump up and say like public list of enemies, list of enemy script, and we'll call it enemies in range. So this will allow us to do damage to multiple enemies. Shit, this is not a function at all. Okay, so when we hit something tagged enemy, if enemies in range does not include, so if enemies in range does not contain collision dot get component enemy script. So if the enemy script is not in the list, then enemies in range dot add collision dot get component enemy script. All right, so we're adding it to our list here. And then let's duplicate this. And we're going to need to do on trigger exits 2D. And if you are exiting something tagged enemy, we'll say if enemies in range does contain it, then remove it. Okay, so now we're adding every enemy that we touch into this list, and then we're removing them from the list, theoretically. Let's test that. And then hopefully what we can do is when we attack, it'll deal damage to all the enemies that are in that list. So here's our enemies in range list. I'm going to click play. We got our wizard. And when we leave, the wizard's gone. We got this wizard. Cool. I'm going to see if we can have 2 and 1. So if I move up here, they're both up here. And it looks like I have both of them. on my list. So this seems to be pretty nice. I'm honestly not sure if it will work for all cases. There's probably some edge cases where this is going to screw up, but this looks okay. And this will be useful for like an AoE attack too. And so what I'm going to do is when I hit this button, mouse button 1, attack logic is going to say, let's get rid of the, well, we do need to set this active. We don't need to use this in the enemy script anymore. In the enemy script, we're going to have a public void take damage function, and it's going to take in a float how much. And then it's going to do this here, and I will comment this out. And it doesn't need to know this. Doesn't need to know, oh yes, it does this, but it's how much, and how much dot toString. Cool. So now in the player script, we're back over here. We do need to set the weapon to be true. And then we're also going to say auto attack equals true. Auto attack doesn't exist, so we're going to go up and make it a Boolean. Public bool auto attack. And I'm not fixing all the edge cases here. I'm just getting a basic functionality. There are going to be a lot of edge cases where it's auto attack is always on, and you're like, what the hell? What am I doing? Why? And so what's going to happen is I right click and auto attack is going to be true. And what auto attack is going to do is it's going to say, if auto attack in update. Oh, no. Let's not do it in update. Let's do it in our fancy schmancy coroutines. We're going to say public I enumerator, not enumerable, I enumerator auto attack. Okay, and what auto attack is going to do is it's going to say, you can make it do a ton of different things. I'm going to make it do like a swipe attack that attacks all of the enemies in range. So I'm going to say, for each enemy script, E in enemies in range, E dot take damage, random damage. Okay, so auto attack is going to say, boom, everyone that's in range is going to take damage. For each enemy script in this list, they all take damage. And I think this is going to create a different number per enemy. I'm pretty sure because it's going to loop through, which is good. And then we'll say yields return null. And after it returns null thing, we're going to say if enemies in range dot count is greater than 0, then we're going to start this coroutine again. Okay, so this is going to create like a loop, and we're going to start the coroutine up here. So maybe we don't need the Boolean. I'll comment that out. We might need it for other checks later on, but for this, I'm going to right click. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to right click. It's going to turn the weapon on. It's going to start the coroutine auto attack, and auto attack is going to deal damage to every enemy in range. Then it's going to wait, and then it's going to say if enemies in range dot count is greater than 0. Do it again. But somewhere in here, we want a delay, like a cooldown, an attack cooldown. And I think it'll be right here. So they take damage the first second that we right click, which feels good. Then it waits a little bit. Yield return new, wait for seconds. Attack delay. We'll create attack delay. I think that's important, so I'm putting it up front. And we'll just say it equals 1F right now, 1 full second. So again, we click the right button, right click, and it sets the weapon to be true, and it starts auto attacking. And it says for each enemy and enemies in range, they take damage. Then it waits for a second, and it does it again. That's okay. We might get an error if this is null. And like I said, there's going to be a dozen other edge cases that are going to trip us up. Well, let's just try this real quickly. So say minimum damage is 1. Let's make maximum damage 10. You can one-shot them. And I'm going to click play. Let's get close to this guy. He's in range. I right click. Stealing 1 every second. Enemies in range. I right click. Cool. I mean, we are getting an error. That's not great, but this is somewhat functional. Let's move down here and try to kill both of them. Uh-oh. Nice. That's awesome. I think the error might be because the enemy's not removing itself. It's just destroying itself, which is not great for list and data management. So they're taking damage, and what they're going to do is say, take damage, float, how much? And we can also ask it to send in the click to move player. And then when it dies, we'll say player dot enemies in range dot remove this. So not only am I sending in a damage number, I'm also sending in the player game object script, whatever. Let's try it again. This is not bad. I'm going to group these wizards together so I can attack them both at the same time. No, it's still yelling at me. Collection was modified, enumeration operation may not execute. This might be because of the for each loop. The other way to do this is for int I equals enemies in range dot length, no, dot count, I greater than 0, I minus minus. There's a reason why you go from max to minimum, but whatever. Let's do count minus 1, and we'll say enemies in range I dot take damage. right, let's test that now. Okay, it's working, no issue, but it's not adding more enemies to my list here. Doesn't like this wizard for some reason. Tagged enemies, got a collider. Because my stupid -1. Or I greater than or equal to 0. I'm revealing my code noobishness here. For loops for me, a decent amount of playing around and making sure I get it right. Cool. Hey, look at this. We got some games going here. And it works and it doesn't yell at us anymore. Deals different damage to different guys in our range. And if we didn't, so let me add something else real quick. Let's say public bool swipe on. So we'll say swipe will attack multiple enemies, and swipe, and if you don't have swipe, it won't. So for this, we can say if swipe on, then attack them all in range. Else, we can just attack the closest one. And getting the closest one is going to be a pain in the ass. So what we're going to do is we are going to sort them by distance. Really, it should be the 0th one. Because, but it might not. No, it might not be. Because we might move away from it after we've entered it onto the list. But this is swipe, and so if we don't want to swipe, we just want to attack one at a time, then we have that Boolean there. Yeah, and then sorting by distance is, it's not difficult. It's just the sort of thing that, again, like I kind of have to mess around with it. So I might not get it the first shot. I think I could do it. It's enemies in range dot sort, and I have to tell it how to sort. We say X, comma Y. And that is X dot name, Y dot name. To Y dot name. This sorts it by name, I'm pretty sure. So then by distance would be enemies in range dot sort, and you're going to sort X to Y according to the distance between, we'll say 3 dot distance between game object and X, compared to vector 3 dot distance game object dot Y. Transform dot position X dot transform we're doing it. So really, I'm pretty sure this is going to sort by distance, but we want to sort it first and then attack the 0th element because it's the lowest one. And let's just print closest equals enemies in range 0 dot name. Let's cluster all these guys. Our closest is 5. So are they both in the list right now? Yeah, 2 of them are on the list. 5 is taking damage. And now this one's closest, so now that one's taking damage. Awesome. And of course we get an error, but whatever. Don't worry about that. Okay, great. That's it for that. It's a lot of stuff that we just threw in there. Sorry, I had to figure it out once you get me started for sorting and stuff like that. It's like I got to do it, got to finish it. But yeah, I hope that helped. And if you could send me that video, it would help me a lot.